Week's Make a Thing. This is part 4 of my talk with SEAN ROURKE, who is kind enough to come on and ask me questions about movie making and where I think the industry is going and what we're doing with Wisteria and how I feel about art and all sorts of stuff like that. And it's a great talk that we had to break up into a number of parts. There's one more part coming after this, I think, which will be either next week or the beginning of the new year. But if you haven't seen the other parts, please go back in my channel. You'll see Thron, Rourke, part 1, part 2, part 3, etc., and catch up on it. This one is mainly about what indie filmmaking is becoming. So this one is very central to sort of the motivation behind what we're trying to do with Wisteria, and I'm really blessed to have been able to talk to SEAN about this kind of stuff, because he has been in the zone that I am describing for as long as I've known him. You can see his stuff and get his ideas at thevampirescastle.com. Or go to his YouTube channel, which is also The Vampire's Castle. He loves vampires, loves vampire fiction, loves vampire stories. He makes his own vampire movies. He encourages other people to create their own vampire stuff and vampire art. And he has just been jamming away at it as long as I know, and he is an absolute genius. So please go and check that stuff out. It's a pleasure to talk to him about being inspired and getting stuff done. And I hope you get a kick out of the interview, and I'll see you after we talk. Bye.
We've talked about your approach to physically making the thing. We've talked about what it is that draws you to a particular thing. Talk to us for a minute about the fact that, and this is just because I'm terribly interested in this, is that it feels as though your chosen medium is now sort of melting and
right.
and becoming several things.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And so no longer is this just Dan is writing a screenplay, Dan will shoot the screenplay, Dan will have the screen we'll edit the thing, visual effects, it's done, it goes somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
You've since you wrote a short story and published that, and then now it's up on YouTube. Mm-hmm. You are in the middle of 2 very different projects, and this it seems like you're in this wonderful renaissance, but you're finding different ways to tell your stories. Mm-hmm. Where is that coming from, and how is that for you?
It's yeah. I've never really thought about it that way, but I think you're right. It's like I used to be very single-minded about like movies, specifically like in the movie theater movies. You know, like that's the ultimate goal, right? And that's the only thing that's legitimate. And now I'm like, I'm completely the opposite of that now. And then first of all, I do want to talk about like, there's very few things to do in my life that I love more than going to a movie theater. Like it's like in the right, like in the right circumstances, an optimal going to the movies experience is like one of the greatest things ever. You know, like you see a great print of whatever Apocalypse Now on a big screen with good sound, and everyone in the crowd wants to be there. It's hard. It's really hard to beat that for me. But the movie theater experience obviously is changing pretty quickly, and what people use movies for is changing really quickly. And out of that, like, you have filmmakers that are embracing it, and filmmakers that are fighting it super hard, and everyone's sort of like trying to figure out, like, I think basically what you just set up is like how, like, what is the way in which you are facing these changes, and what is that, you know, what has happened within you from these changes, right? And And you can see that in, like, for instance, you see like Christopher Nolan or Quentin Tarantino, are like rigidly holding on to a very particular, like the chemical medium of film, and all this has to be like, and I totally get it, because from my opinion, like, film itself is not yet beaten uh by video. Like, it is like the very best possible, the like a first strike projection of 75 millimeter on a crystal clear screen with like all the bells and whistles is still like 20 times better than the very highest end video anything that I've ever seen. And that'll be true for 4 years. Like,
Yeah, right,
like,
right.
that's what's going to be true. And and so, like, being married to things technologically is, it's not a long-term winning argument, and I think that it like, I totally understand where these dudes are coming from, because they have a romantic attachment to, like, they have, I think that, and I don't think they disagree. I don't think Tarantino would disagree with me on this necessarily. Like, I think that like he has a romantic attachment to the process of film as he knows it. And the key word in that sentence is attachment, right? And I think that is the thing to look at, in myself, is like, because attachments aren't great. Like, attachments to me are bad now. And
okay.
I used to hold on to my attachments very, very, very tightly, because they defined me. And I was afraid if I let go of them, then I would melt away. And I think that putting an emotion so profound as love for storytelling, and thinking that the cause of that is somehow in the physical element of what you're doing, is a mistake that'll only ultimately make you frustrated and sad. And like, it, because you don't love the film, you love the film. And so, that, specifically speaking about movie making, like actual movie making, is one thing, but you can expand that sort of philosophy out to pretty much everything past that point. And you see that, if you don't hold on to what you think a medium needs to be in order for you to feel safe, then you can let it expand, and suddenly new stuff appears for you, and like, you go, I didn't realize that I would also love this. It didn't occur to me, because I was so cranked up on just this one thing. I was having tunnel vision about what my love should be. If it was real love, then it would only be this, as opposed to just like, dude, you're gonna fall in love along the way. Like, fall in love. It's great to fall in love, and it's like, it reminds me of, like, when you see people on vacation and they're having a really shitty time because they're not on schedule. It's like,
yes.
What's going on, man? like you're at this fucking French cafe with a baguette. Like, why do you ever have to get to the Eiffel Tower at all?
Yes.
You're completely in the zone. just embrace that. And I think that, like, it doesn't mean that you're gonna drift far off your original mark if you think of things that way. It's like, one of the, like, the Gareth of this particular show, like, Gareth is one of the most sort of organized, and it's I don't know of any other artist in my life that has his shit together more than that guy. Like, he thinks about things long term. He plans very deeply. He chips away slowly, figuring out what he wants to do, and he lays it out, schedules it, does it, and then he publishes a new thing. He's a comic artist, and he's extremely successful at it. And so from one point of view, it would seem like he's very rigid. He's a planner. He's like very focused on all this kind of stuff. But really, he's like the way he's a very Zen guy, and watching him work is what has been a great inspiration to me my whole life, because he is just constantly open to how to figure a thing out. Like he's pretty set on the things he loves. He's always going this way, but he's just like he's always looking around gently at how to voice the thing he wants to do. He has no anxiety. I'm sure he does. I'm sure you disagree with me on this, but like compared to other people I know, including myself, like he doesn't have this like driving sweaty brow anxiety that everyone else has about being creative. And I think that having that sort of like an open mindset about it is something that for the most of my life I've been afraid of. I think it's a better way to say it. Like I've been avoidant of it because I've been afraid of it. And so when it was clear even years ago when things were going to be changing, like just YouTube itself, like all the stuff, like things are going to be sort of just starting to change shape. Like I would think I was fairly defensive about it, and I was like, just like I could never be this and you never be this, and like fuck TV just because it's popular doesn't mean blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff. and whereas now like my feeling on just for instance like between movies and TV to start with, right, and then into movies and streaming, and then from beyond movies and streaming into what is now headed our way. Like start with movies and TV. Like my big beef with TV for the longest time is, like you'd hear whatever, like I don't know, like like it, movies can't do stuff like whatever the Sopranos, right? And I'm like, well, yeah, but TV doesn't do the fucking Godfather either. Like, I have never seen anything on TV as good as The Godfather. And I'm sort of angry about this kind of stuff and very, very defensive. But I spend a lot more time thinking about it, and like I can see that there's two different mechanisms going on, and instead of taking sides about it, like look at where they actually share things, and where they cross over, right? Because like it is true that like TV, like great TV can do things that movies can't do, and like I would not have wanted to admit that before, but now it's interesting to me, like it's fascinating to me, because like the you watch something like Sopranos or or whatever, Queen's Gambit for instance is a good example. Like Queen's Gambit is able to tell a really complex character story over the course of 10 hours, and people will watch this in a single day. I watched it more or less in a single day. It's a great movie. I thought it was great, and I can freely recommend this to people and say like, dude, you should check out Queen's Gambit. And no one's like, oh, I heard that's like 10 hours long. They're just like, right, cool, I'm gonna binge it tomorrow on Saturday. Like they just fucking do it. Meanwhile, I'll be like, I just saw on HBO they put up Sergei Bondarchuk's version of War and Peace, and it's four parts, and all together it's about 7 or 8 hours. So 7 or 8 hours. Like, and I say this like 7, and I say this, and people still go, dude, a fucking 8-hour movie? I don't know if I could do that. I'm just like, you just watched all of Peaky Blinders, literally.
Yes. Yes.
So, yes. But yeah, like these two things at the first level, they are two different. And this is like, I started going down the rabbit hole for a minute, but it's like, no? Spend a lot of time thinking about this. These are two different between movies and TV. And on TV, I'm talking about like, to begin with, I'm talking about like literal broadcast TV, which is a rare beast nowadays. But the film TV debate, like these are two different business models. That's what their greatness and limitation comes from their business model. And you have film, its business model is you are renting this chair for 2 hours. That's it. So we have to reach a price point at which this makes sense. And we found that 2 hours is the maximum number of showings per day that still draw people in so they feel like it's valuable. And it comes out to about $12. Like, and so movies are 2 hours. That's why we have 2 hour movies. And when you have to make something in 2 hours, like you got to be really fucking tight about your storytelling. Like you got to get right on point about it.
Right.
And so like movies are like they use, like when people say it's like Martin Scorsese talks about, you know, Marvel versus cinema or something like this. Like the way that I take when people really mean by cinema, if they're honest, isn't going to the movies, because like I didn't see, like there's some great ass movies that I didn't see in the theater and I still think they're incredible. Sure. You know, like the first time I saw, you know, oh gosh, whatever, The Third Man, like I didn't see that in a theater. Like it came out in fucking 1948. You know, and it still blew my mind. It wasn't, you know, like I saw it in the theater, you know, for the first time I saw it in the theater. It was like the 30th time I'd seen the movie. So there's no like magic of the movies or baloney. Like I don't buy into any of that stuff. Like I think that anybody, if they're honest with themselves, if they had the choice between having like their really great TV or an enormous 70-foot wide television with incredibly dedicated 16 channel sound and people that can operate all that shit for you, if they could choose to have either one for free, they'd take the big one. So when people are saying like, oh, it's just as good at home. Very
good point.
It is not just as good at home. It's just that you're perfectly fine with it at home. Like it's big enough at home that you're like, this is fine. I'm not getting so much more. Like I start weighing like getting the kids in the car, driving out there and paying $200, and like that starts to drag down the value of like how big the screen is. Yes. You know. Yes. But if it were just like apples to apples, you'd be like, I'll take the enormous thing, please, with a great sound. So like the experience of seeing something in a movie theater, because it's so short, they have to employ cinema. And what I mean by that is the storytelling is multi-channel. Like, yes, people are talking. That is one of the things that are happening. But also all of these things are happening visually. And there's an enormous amount of shorthand that we've developed to make sure that a shitload of stuff is being thrown at you all the time, because we have this little window to get you crying. And it's like, that's a pretty tough job. Right. But that's why you have movies are like the heights of movies. When people nail it, you know, it's like watching, you know, like it's like when you it's like a video being traded around. The dude like it hits a, you know, drives a hole in one from 400 yards, whatever. You see the ball go, he goes, dunk, and the crowd explodes. Like that's basically the chances of seeing a great movie are that. Right. Like you know, almost all movies are garbage. Almost every single one is garbage. You know, like out of the 10,000 movies that are made every year, 20 are good. Not even great. They're good. 3 of the 20 might be great. Maybe one of them. So you get like 8,000 other movies that are just headed for the Walmart bin every single time, right? And so, but whereas like if I turn on any channel of TV at all, like I could turn on whatever, Duck Dynasty. Like I have watched multiple episodes of Duck Dynasty. Why? I don't know. I was into it. I was like, this show is stupid. And I watched it for an hour. And then another one came on and I kept on watching it. Yes. So like the amount of like average skill that goes into anything on television is much, much higher than anything in film. Like the chances of you watching something that's decent by throwing a dart at television, like it's going to be good. it's going to be good. They have a pipeline that produces nothing but like at least good, you know. But like their highs are almost non-existent. You know, like they're just like they're always really good, always really good. And then movies are like always really shitty. 2001, still shitty. You know? So like I think that the when you look at the way that TV is made, like TV, because it has to be a consistent pipeline, like it's not like any indie jerk off can run around the camera and get something in the movie theater. Steven Soderbergh, there it is, you know. And if it's great, it'll take off and people will love it. But with TV, you don't have you always have to be at least good to keep them watching, right? And it can't be any different from last week's good. It's got to be the same good, because if it starts changing, no, people don't like that.
Right,
keep on serving up the same pizza over and over and over and over again. Right? And so for TV, the struggle I had with TV when it was simply TV was that like it was the difference between film and TV was film is like plays. You know, you go to see a play, and TV is like vaudeville, right? And it doesn't mean vaudeville is not entertaining, but the point of vaudeville is to sell you beer. Like there's just more and more guys, jugglers, plate spinners, and the dude sets his kid on fire and throws him, whatever. So we can keep on churning this shit out until they close us down. Like there's no story, but you will be entertained. I promise you that. Sell you a beer. And that's the goal. That was the goal for the longest time with TV. And so people would say like, oh, you know, like it like, you know, there's a zillion shows. Like if you could name the number of normal network TV shows that were great all the way through their run and ended well, Hill Street Blues.
Sure. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
You know?
Maybe.
And so like there's like that's about like it's literally listable on less than 5 fingers, I'm pretty sure. And that's because it breaks the business model, and it's not the idea is to keep going, not to stop. And because you take out the stopping part, right, then you don't have a story. Like it doesn't, you're not saying anything, you're just talking until your audience falls asleep, you know, or you run out of interesting things to say. And so whereas the point of storytelling is you have an idea, right? You have a meaning or a theme or just a sentence in your mind that you want to get across to people, right? And you want to get it delivered to them as powerfully and emotionally as possible. And so you build up to a crescendo, you close it off, and you go, there, voila, Queen's Gambit, right? And you get done with that, and you're like, oh, that was great. I'm full. Yeah, thank you.
Exactly.
Right? Exactly. I don't need to keep watching. I'm not going to turn on Queen's Gambit 2 immediately. I'm happy to wait 3 years for that. And and so for TV was like, nope, not gonna follow that as a business model, because that will screw us over. And so when like it changed a little bit when HBO came into the game. When HBO's big advancement with Sopranos, etc., was, what if it was vaudeville, but really good vaudeville? Like everyone was incredibly talented. They were so talented, you almost thought you were watching a story. Almost. Yes. It feels just like it, right? But the thing they introduced with that is they upped their production game so much, and it became so sort of filmic in its production level, right, that people really started getting kind of picky and demanding over stuff, right? And so like it became a big competition to try to serve up like the next sort of Sopranos, right? And that this leads all the way up finally to streaming. And streaming, you know, finally gains ground because it starts showing things like, hey, you want to catch up on The Sopranos, here it is, right? And streaming answers the question like differently, because it says, looks like you are binge watching all of Sopranos in just a couple of days on whatever your DVD collection. You know, people buy it and then just watch the whole thing all week, right? So you can actually watch a shitload of stuff at once. You know, you actually do have the patience to indulge in something that long, right? And so we are going to build a new business model, which is we are going to tell you stories again, but now we are set free of the 2-hour limit. Like now we don't have to, we're not renting you a fucking seat. Like, we can just let it run. We can just let it run. And now all it has to be is great. And that's the point. Like, and in fact, like for a while it was really bloated. Like the things were like, streaming series were like 23 episodes long, just like they were with regular TV. But now it's boiled back to like 6 to 8 episodes, maybe. Because people are realizing like you don't really need that long to tell a great story. Like, yeah, exactly. You just don't, once you start spinning your wheels, like you're doing it wrong. Like make sure everything should be as short as possible. Sometimes short means 8 hours, but it needs to be to deliver the experience. It needs to be as tight as it possibly can be. I mean, it's, as an editor, I'm sure you vibe with me on this. Like don't waste the audience's time, right?
Yes.
And so the great, once I realized this about streaming, I was just like, and like the thing is like that was my first the first moment. This is when I was doing the Water Bottle tour with Spoiler, is I actually pitched essentially where I thought stuff was going to go. I started really thinking about it, and I ended up being kind of right. I was definitely not the only person, but I had written it up and I sort of sent it to people that were representing me, and I was just like, this is what I think you could actually do with this stuff. I don't think you have these limitations like you used to. And that was the first time I started to feel a little positive about the changes that I saw coming down the pike. And it sort of unfolded the way that I thought that it would. But even then, I didn't see how huge it would become, right? And how pervasive it is now. And now I'm looking at it going like, we're on the verge of something else. Like there's a next step that is about to happen that nobody is really aiming at yet. And that was keyed off by Cobra Kai. And Cobra Kai was made, pretty cheaply for YouTube, right? And it was a hit on YouTube. And it was a hit for a very small space of time before Netflix came in and gave them all the money to not be on YouTube. And that makes me think that Netflix is very frightened of YouTube. Like, because YouTube, it turns out, is a business model, or allows for people to have a business model that doesn't depend on anybody else at all. Like, there's no studios, there's no, all layers of producers you have to pitch through to get somewhere. Like, none of that's just not there. And what's even better is that YouTube are a bunch of bastards, and they will not allow you to make any money at all. Like, they're just an engine that the only benefit you get is you have videos up on it, and that's it. And that's free. Everything else, they're like, if you swear, if you look sideways at somebody else, it's demonetized, gone, forget it. And they're like, you're never going to make a dime off of YouTube. And that's actually great, because they don't care what else you do. Like, it's just, if you start making money, they want it to be their money. That's the only deal. And they are just an engine to distribute content, because the advertisement is built into it and everyone's used to that stuff. And the way that YouTube became popular was through, obviously, cat videos and everything else. And so people still, even though, basically I watch YouTube all day. Like, I just have it playing all day with, like science shows and just beautifully professionally produced material all day long, right? People still generally think about it as like, well, I mean, that's where I may get my news there. I may get my video game reviews there. And I may get my 25 hours of the analysis of The Shining there. But I don't watch like stories on YouTube. That's what Netflix is for. And I was like, why? Why is that? Why do we think about it like that? Because like Netflix has like, as much as I can, pitch Netflix's business model of like has set people free from to do whatever kind of storytelling they want, like they still have a business model and it still has limitations. Like they are like there's a reason why Glow, a very, very popular show, was canceled after 3 seasons. It's because it was unable to get any new subscribers anymore. It's not that it wasn't wildly successful, but they're just like, the only thing we make money on is getting new people to sign on, and we're reaching market saturation. And the fact that they're reaching market saturation is why I think that whole thing is ending. Like,
interesting.
There's nowhere to go. There's nowhere for them to go right now. Like they've reached everything. And so like I feel like what's going to happen for them, I mean, there's still going to be a huge presence, but they have
absolutely,
yeah, like that, but they have essentially turned into movie studios, like a constant that has business model that is solid, and they will continue to make billions of dollars off of Extraction 9 and whatever else they can. They're just going to do that, and they've hit their stride, and now they're going to do that. And movie studios themselves will evaporate because they're useless, and all they are is just a bunch of middle people, like a huge crowd of people that where you have to go and ask every single one of those people in line if it's okay for you to make something. Like there's no business model there at all. There's nothing to be done, and I can't imagine those surviving very much longer. And that's why all of them are transforming themselves into whatever, Roger Corman Plus, like some new streaming model, but like as this was all going on, during my own sort of self-evaluation, like I started to I was experimenting with, what are the things that I love, and getting back to writing and just writing stories, and drawing and painting and stuff like that. And without any particular, point, and like a friend of mine, another writer, we both love this writer, science fiction writer named Kim Stanley Robinson, and wrote Red Mars, Green Mars, Blue Mars, and a bunch of other stuff. And he's like, oh dude, we both love this. This guy is judging this contest for Arizona State University for climate fiction, science fiction, global warming style science fiction. And I was just like, oh shit, yeah, I'll just enter that. I'll just write something and I'll send it off. Why not? And I did, and it got into their book. Like I won the thing, and it was fourth place, blah blah blah, whatever it was. And I was just like, and this is like, it's not like, I got published in Harper's. It's like, this is just like some little college right. thing that was published online. But I was like, oh shit, that was really fun. Like it was just like that was surprisingly satisfying. There's this author that I like that not a lot of people have read, but I like the dude, and I'm psyched that he read my thing, and now it's in a thing. And like there was no like stress about the project. It was just like I just wrote a thing, something I liked, sent it off, and it happened. And I was like, oh yeah, like you can just do stuff. You can just I feel like working on this. I have a thing I want to talk about, I want to say, or whatever it is, and you just start noodling with it. And there's venues for it. Someone will appreciate it if you want to get it out there. Like it doesn't have to be the New York Times. It doesn't have to be that. It can just be, a few, whatever, like 1,000 people read the thing, maybe, if I'm lucky. And that's way more, like the amount of satisfaction I get out of that is, when you compare that to the stress of trying to make it as a novelist or something like this, I'm just like, I think I'll go with this one. This is kind of fucking awesome, and then years later, it's like, because that was in 2017, somewhere in there, I got a call or a text in the middle of the night from some high school kid in Amsterdam. And he's like, are you Dan Thron, who wrote The Grandchild Paradox? And I was like, yeah, what? Yes. What's going on? It's like, I'm so and so from, from Amsterdam, and my class is reading your story, and I'm doing a paper on it, and so I figured I would get in touch with you and ask you some questions about it.
What?
And I was like,
That's outstanding.
holy shit. Like this is, I was so I mean, I chatted with this dude for an hour and a half, and he's a really sweet, nice guy. And then another year after that, I got a letter, an email from this Dutch publishing house who said, "Do you mind if we translate your story into Danish, rather, into Danish for this collection of science fiction stories, along with Ken Liu and Kim Stanley Robinson, who originally wrote the thing for, and all this stuff. We're putting this in the book." And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And I happen to have this right. So now I'm in 48 to Mary, Massachusetts habit.
That's outstanding.
This is so fucking awesome, and it makes me feel so great that this is out there and being read in classes and stuff like this. And
absolutely,
the amount of stress that I suffered over writing it is near zero. I didn't fucking spend years trying to convince people to let me be a writer. I wasn't right. I wasn't fucking wringing the rag out, oh Jesus, I gotta get one. None of that happened. It was just a thing that I wanted. I felt inspired to write. I wrote it. I sent it out, and now it's at least gone this far. Whatever happens with it past this point is the graviest of gravies,
Right.
And so this, approaching things that way, where you're just what's interesting and is right in front of me is this, and you take that and you go you look at YouTube, for instance, and how YouTube works. You just go, oh, I can just do this. I can just make a thing and put it up and send it out. And it doesn't actually matter if it goes anywhere. If it's got 50 views and some folks like it, or someone says something about it, then what else is necessary? I just want to get this idea out there, and if people dig it, they'll forward it on, and who knows, maybe it becomes a thing. But if it doesn't become a thing, I'm already good. I already reached the level of just I got the thing made, and it's out there. That's my responsibility. And we do things to put it out there and advertise this stuff and sort of push it and try to get people to see things. I mean, certainly. And like I said, you want to build it so there's enough of a business model there so that if it does take off, then it doesn't wipe out. Or you just go okay, well, it's a 1 in 1,000 chance that anything will even remotely hit. But in case, just make sure everything's lined up so you can take advantage of that. It's that's the old saw. Just genius is what it's. Genius is 1%. It's 1% luck and 99% preparation. Or you just be ready. Just always be ready. You don't have to fucking grind your head into nothing. Just always know that, just be aware that these opportunities come along, and then you can throw your hat in the ring or something. But so with YouTube is designed to do this entirely for everyone, and it's wide open. It's so wide open that it's almost hard to think about, because when you think about the movie business, it's already got all these baffles set up. Oh, you want to be in movies, do you? Do you have the stuff? Whereas YouTube's what? Yeah, sure. All right, load it up. Press the button, you're on. And that's it. And so the more I dug into it, when I was just first really interacting with making things and putting things up, I was it's weird to me that there's so little of the 600 hours per minute that are put up on YouTube. There is so little just movies, just people making movies, telling stories like this. And I'm what? I mean, and there's plenty of examples of people doing this. I'm not saying it's not happening, but it's just
oh, sure.
But it's not thought of this way. So it's just invisible, or people are just like, it's just like, no, it didn't occur to, it just has, people haven't crossed over into realizing that they are living in a film studio, like, and they're just like, oh, did you notice all these lights around here? This is so strange. Click, 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 click. What does this camera do? Has this been here the whole time? And the thing is, I mean, I went through the same realization. I'm just like, oh yeah, YouTube's for whatever. I'll watch, my science videos and PBS Space Time, and that's what it's for. And the idea of saying, like, what if we make a show for YouTube, like the people that I've worked with professionally on other stuff, or like on trying to create new shows and pitch things, like they're just like, yeah, dude, there's no money in that. I'm like there's fucking money in pitching TV shows.
Yes.
What are you, nuts?
Yes.
I'm not paying my rent with all the sweet juice that I'm getting off a spoiler. Yes. That's not what's happening.
Exactly.
So like it's just making this leap in your mind. It's saying, you just got to let go of that. Like YouTube is there. YouTube is simply there for you to make use of widely. Makes it all very easy, accessible, and basically free. And all you have to do is let go of the idea, whatever idea you had of yourself as the next Steven Spielberg, or the next showrunner of Lost, or whatever it is. Like that, not only is that not going to happen, like it's just not going to happen. And I don't mean that as like you have no chance, but like there's perfectly a chance that anyone can become rich and famous off of anything. That's not what I'm saying. It's rather the story of Steven Spielberg isn't true. The story of J.J. Abrams and Lost isn't true. Like the way that they got there, even if it was that one time was true for them, that's it. They walked that path, and now the path is overgrown. That's not how you get there anymore. And realistically, the reason why Steven Spielberg became Steven Spielberg is because he was making fucking movies, and no one, he wouldn't let anybody stop him. And that's it. Like that's it. Like there's only one thing to be sure of, is that if you make stuff, like that puts your hat in the ring. If you go around like I did, talking for 20 years about how you're going to make stuff someday, like that's how to not become Steven Spielberg. So like it seems sort of obvious when you say it out loud. That talk to me along at any point and say, no, it's around the corner, you'll see. No, it ain't. But now, like I've lived to the point, and we're all at the point where it's just like, YouTube allows you now to simply, easily just put your money where your mouth is, and it's not even that much money, and so don't just be open to that, but be open to like your heart's desire in terms of what you want to express, because you don't even have to design this for somebody else in terms of like, you're not even going like, oh, well, we have to think about the fact that audiences aren't that bright. They're not going to really understand what we have to dumb this down. In the first act, it has to be, you don't have to fucking do any of that at all. Zero. Right. Like, like the stuff that's up there right now, that's a hit, right? Like my youngest son showed me, I always forget that name, Epithet Erased. You can look this up. Epithet Erased is a Dungeons and Dragons style animated story, right? And it looks good. It looks really pretty good. Like, man, the illustrations they're using are pro, and the voice actors are good, and like it's got great scripts, and it's very funny. And there's a zillion of them. They try them out all the time. And I was watching, it's just like, this is like, all this looks good, but the animation itself is like literally like character slides on, voice actor talks, no animation, no mouth animation, nothing. It's just a picture, and then it After Effects turns around like this and walks up stage this way, and or they'll show a bunch of characters walking and talking, and they'll show this by saying, like, you see a map, top down, Dungeons and Dragons, like Tomb of Horror style, and little squares with the characters' pictures on it floating forward, like keyframed from here to here, and then their dialogue plays over this. That was just like, this is like 3 or 4 people made this, and it's insanely popular. It's millions of views, and its age bracket, it's giant hit. And I was like, holy shit. Like, so it doesn't really matter if you have like $1 billion or not $1 billion. And then that was further proven because there's another thing. I can't think of the name of it right off the top of my head, but anyway, like there's another show that he was watching, which is this woman who is literally describing her D&D game, and what happened in her D&D game with all of her friends playing these characters. And it is pencil sketched, and it dissolves between the pencil sketches. And she's not like, I mean, she's a perfectly good illustrator, but it's just like, it's not like, you know, like the time consuming art. It's just like a couple of scribbles and whatever. Millions and millions of viewers watch this thing. And so it made me think, like, nobody gives a shit about production value. Nobody gives a shit about, you know, the act structure you're supposed to use. Nobody gives a shit about any of that stuff. And all that stuff is baloney. Like, use it if you want to. It's also fun. But you can literally do whatever you please because someone out there will like it. And if you get it out to one person who's like, click, watches it and gets a high off of it that day, then you've done your whole job. Even if they don't click like, like, it doesn't even matter. Like, you've delivered it, somebody's seen it, and someone's like, oh, that was pretty fucking cool. Then you've totally done your job. You know, and you can go home, you can go to sleep happy as a clam. Like, you made a thing, you delivered it somewhere in the world, someone saw this thing and you can see on the statistics on YouTube, they watched it all the way through. So now I know it wasn't just like sucked and you're out. Like, they watched it, they're just like, all right, I'm down with that thing, that's fine. And that's as much of an ego stroke, I think, as I really should ever want out of my life. It's like someone bothered to pay attention to me for 5 minutes without getting too frustrated. It's a win for me that day. It's pretty good. Sorry for the very long answer there, but it's like, that's the way the media landscape is changing. What like happened to be at a time when I was doing some interior landscaping of my own. At least the first pass at all the animation. We'll see if I get there next week. Hopefully, I'll just be showing it to you next week. I hope everyone's having a really good holiday season, and we have a lot of awesome stuff to tell you about starting this new year. So happy everything, and we'll see you on Make a Thing next time around.